Time to light it up.
Christmas Eve is the scariest damn night of the year.
What is...
You see Santa Claus tonight? You better run, boy. You better run for your life.
Kill me now.
Welcome back to Merry Maniacs in December of 2017. It's Christmas Eve today, and I got a great one for you. And I'm talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, I almost didn't get this because I hadn't seen this movie in such a long time. And I think I've only ever seen it once, and it was on the release when it originally came out, and that was the only time I've ever seen this. So when I heard that Scream Factory was coming out with this, the special edition of Silent Night, Deadly Night, I was like, okay, well, it'd be kind of a cool thing to do for December of this year, but I don't remember if the movie is good enough to sit here and buy it and review it and go through all the extras for you. So I took a chance on it, and I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and get it. Took a chance on it, and I am so glad I did. Silent Night, Deadly Night actually takes place on Christmas Eve. And, I mean, how perfect is that? It's like, it's like, you think it would take place on Christmas because it's like Santa Claus killing people, whatever. No, it actually does take place on Christmas Eve. So I was like, all right, yeah, I got to get on here and review it for you today. So if you're sitting around today and it's Christmas Eve and you're like, I wonder what to watch. And if you have this, or, if you have a way to acquire to watch this, maybe, do so. Do so immediately. Now, this actually came out in 1984. And I remember it, obviously, coming out and then making a huge controversy about it. And everybody was talking about it all over the news, all over magazines, all over everything, because Killer Santa. Santa's going around killing people, and their kids are having nightmares because now Santa's a killer, and on and on and on. And, of course, they deal with that in this, and I'll talk about it in a minute. And I ran out and I rented it. I did not, of course, it was out, limited run in the movie theater, and then it was gone. I mean, they pulled it pretty quick, and then it came out on VHS, and pretty much like every other horror fan who wanted to see it but didn't get a chance to, ran out and rented it on VHS tape and watched it. And from what I can remember, I was disappointed in it, and I think it was because, all these groups that were protesting this movie never actually saw the freaking movie. And they kept saying it was Santa killing people, Santa killing. So when I went to watch it, I obviously thought, oh my God, Santa Claus is coming from the North Pole. He's gone crazy. He's going to go and slaughter all these people. It's going to be amazing. And that's not this movie. That is not Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was their, parents that were upset because their kids seen a trailer for it on TV, thinking it was Santa Claus. But it really was. It has nothing to do with the actual Santa Claus. This is a total psycho who ends up killing people. Okay, so he's dressed as a Santa Claus outfit, I understand. But if they had stopped and thought about it for a second and said, hey, this isn't Santa Claus. It's just another slasher film about a psycho dressed as Santa Claus. And the other thing is, if these parents were so upset and if it ruined their kid's childhood, why didn't they sit little Billy down or little whoever down and say, listen, this is make-believe. It's not real. So you don't have anything to worry about. This is not Santa. It's all make-believe. But no, they wanted to protest. Oh my God, you ruined my child's entire Christmas, and on and on and on and on about this movie. And these people are just idiots. And even today, it's the same thing. If they hear something they don't like, oh my God, I'm going to go protest. I'm going to go protest. And 99% of the time, they don't know what they're protesting. They just get out there and start yelling about something they don't know anything about. that being said, let's take a look at the disc. It has a really great new cover, if you can see that. It's a fantastic cover, really fantastic artwork. I mean, check out the drawing here. I'm trying to get in focus. Yeah, it's a really, really nice drawing. And it has, snow coming down and Billy standing there with an axe. And it's just a great new cover. I think it's fantastic looking. Now, with all Scream Factory discs, obviously, it has the alternate cover, which is a classic cover in itself. I mean, pretty much everyone identifies Silent Night, Deadly Night with the original cover, and it's a fantastic cover. But inside of it, I'll show you real quick, is 2 discs. They're both crooked. The first one is the original of Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is what the original poster looks like. And the one from Scream Factory is the unrated version of Silent Night, Deadly Night. Okay, so this is the original cover if you've never seen it, and I mean, it's just great. I mean, come on. Have Santa Claus coming up out of the chimney with an axe. I mean, you can't get a more classic cover than that. That's actually not Santa Claus. I'm sorry, But the one thing I loved about Scream Factory is you can have this classic cover on your Blu-ray, and if you have a slipcase, you can put it into the slipcase, just like so. And you have your new cover, and you want to take it out, and you have the original cover on the DVD. So you get both covers, and that's awesome. I think it's fantastic. I love the fact that they do that. And this is actually one of the best covers I've seen that they've done. I mean, the artwork is absolutely amazing here. So let's get into the movie, and I'm not going to spoil it for those who, like myself, who hasn't seen it in such a long time and are wondering, oh man, should I buy this? Should I even watch it? And we still do have another week of December left, so it's still sort of holiday-ish, even if it's after Christmas Eve and Christmas. And, it's still December, even though it's not Christmas Eve anymore, so you can still have time to get out and get this and watch it. So the question is, should you watch it? And the answer is absolutely yes. This is such a good film. Actually, it's not really a good film, it's a good 80s slasher film. It's not good in the sense of, a good movie. It's good in the sense of it's a good 80s slasher film. And it starts out really, really good. It starts out with this little kid, and again, I'm not going to give any spoilers out, but something happens to him, and he hates Christmas, and rightfully so for what happens to him. And he ends up in a orphanage, sort of, and so then the whole entire time he's like scarred for Christmas, and then when he gets older, something happens to him and triggers that, and he goes on a killing rampage. So, so that's what I'll say about the story here. And it is a really good story. It's not that bad, actually, for an 80s slasher film. Like the first half an hour of the movie, it's all character building. It's building the character of this slasher. So when he does get older, you kind of sympathize for him a little bit, kind of knowing why he went nuts and why he's doing this. And you kind of feel for him a little bit. And that's unusual for a slasher film, especially in the 80s. It's basically, here's the psycho, and here's the machete. Go after those people and kill them. That's the story. But this did have a decent backstory to it, and it had a decent killer. I mean, it had a really good killer in this movie, and that's what I liked about it. Again, it's not Santa Claus. It's just a psycho who snaps one day, and he just starts slaughtering people on Christmas Eve. Now, the best part of this film for me is when he gets older, he goes to this toy store. And again, this is 1984. It's the height of some of the greatest toys that have ever came out. Star Wars was, one of them, obviously. But in this toy store, it's sort of like a time capsule. You're sitting there, and I'm an action figure collector. I collect figures and everything. And to sit there and watch this and look at this toy store, and you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. They actually had like a bunch of He-Man stuff. They had the Castle Grayskull sitting there on the shelf. And I was thinking to myself, okay, if this was real, if this was 1984, that probably wouldn't still be there on Christmas Eve. Somebody would have probably bought it. But it was still sitting there. They had the He-Man, like I said, Castle Grayskull, and they actually had some, they even had some Dukes of Hazzard stuff. It looked like a racing set, and they had a full size like Muppets, the full size. And I kind of tried to pause it. I think it said like "Dress Me Muppets" or something like that. And they had Kermit the Frog and Fozzie Bear, the only two I saw. And I'm assuming that you could like take their clothes off and dress them in different clothing or something. I don't ever remember those actually from the 80s, but my God, they look cool. I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. And not only they had a lot of Smurf stuff, and they actually, if you don't remember this old 80s movie called Kroll, I think it was called Kroll the Conqueror, and they had a board game sitting there of Kroll the Conqueror. And just so much cool stuff. And they had Return of the Jedi. They had Jabba the Hutt sets sitting there. And again, this is just an amazing time capsule of a toy store and what it was like in 1984. And I was really hoping to see stuff like Stretch Armstrong. And I believe they did have some G.I. Joe stuff. I think there was some G.I. Joe stuff there. And it was just so cool. I absolutely love that. I think it's, wow, that's awesome. Not to mention the stuff that was going on in the toy store was really cool as well. But it was just one of those extra, wow, this is awesome type of things in there. Like, I loved it. I absolutely, that whole sequence, loved it. It was so cool. And then once he snaps and starts going on a killing spree, the movie is still really good. It's I don't want to call it cheesy, but it's a little cheesy fun. And there's music in this movie. There's actual Christmas music in the film that people are singing, and they produced a Christmas album for this film. And I think during one of the commentaries, the guy said that there was like 10 songs or something that didn't even play in the movie. And one song was "It's Always Christmas on the Other Side of the Door." It's a great song, and again, it just kind of adds to the coolness of this movie that somebody sat down and recorded original Christmas music for Silent Night, Deadly Night. And I would love to get that soundtrack. I think that would be fantastic. Maybe I can get it and maybe review it next year, maybe next Christmas or whatever. And oh man, just the music in the movie was fun. It was really fun. And to my surprise, somehow, I didn't even know this, one of my favorite iconic scream queens from the 80s was in this film, and that is Linnea Quigley. She actually showed up in this film, and I was like, holy cow. And at first, she was so young, and I don't know how old she was, but she was and I didn't even recognize her, because I was used to seeing her later in some of the later movies, but, and she just looked different in this movie. I didn't even recognize her when I saw her for the first time. And she actually has one of the most memorable kills in the film, obviously, of course, because it's Linnea Quigley, so they had to kill her in, a very memorable way. And they do, and it's kind of a cool. It's a pretty cool kill that she gets. She's not in the movie a lot. She's probably in there maybe 10 minutes at the most, and her part really isn't nothing, spoilerish. I guess I can say in the movie. She just kind of shows up. She's one of the victims, and he kills her, and that's pretty much it. That was her role in the film. And overall, it's just a really great film. It is. It really is. It's so much fun going back and revisiting that toy store and going back and looking at all the classic toys and having a killer Santa that actually has a great background, and you kind of understand his rage and why he's doing what he's doing. And it's just, and the Santa outfit itself is pretty cool, too. It's a really pretty nice-looking Santa outfit, to tell you the truth. If I'm going to be scoring just the film, I'm going to have to give Silent Night, Deadly Night a 5 out of 5. Again, if you're a fan of 80s slasher films, you will love this. If you've never seen it or have heard of it and it just slipped off your radar, watch it. You will really, I think, enjoy it if you're a fan of that kind of film. And there are 2 versions of this on here. They got the original one, like I said, and they got the uncut version of it. Now, when you watch the uncut version of this, it pops in the cut scenes, and they're not as clean as the movie that they cleaned up. The movie looks spectacular. It does. It really, wow. It looks like it could have been made yesterday. It's very clean and very clear, and it looks amazing However, the extras that are added to the unrated version are really scratchy and kind of dark, and they said they tried to do what they could to, improve them, but anytime it comes on, you can obviously tell this is the added scene to the unrated version. And I gotta say that the added scenes to the unrated version are fantastic. They do show a little bit more blood, especially with Linnea Quigley's death. I'm really surprised they cut that out. I mean, they did some really cool effects even for back then. I guess it was too graphic, and they cut it out. But it's cool to see it. I mean, it is. And I liked all the uncut stuff. All the stuff they took out of the film worked for the movie. And there was a couple shots that were just people turning around or looking down the hallway and stuff like that. But most of the shots were, the kills, blood and cut with knives and that kind of stuff. And it just added to the movie, and it's kind of disappointing they cut all that out in the original version, but it's awesome that it's back in this unrated version. It's really, really great to see. I did something a little different this time when I was watching the extras on this. I actually watched all the extras before I watched the commentary, because usually I'll sit there and watch the commentary or listen to it, and then by the time I watch the extras, everything that's said in the commentary is also repeated in all the extras. So I figured, okay, well, I'm just going to watch the physical extras first and then the commentary last. So I'll get to that when I get to that. So the first extra is called Sleigh Bells Ring, the story of Silent Night, Deadly Night. So first off, it comes on with this guy, and I think his name is something... Here, let me look it up here. This guy is Schneid, Scott J. Schneid. I think he is co-executive producer of Silent Night, Deadly Night. And as soon as he comes on, he's just not a likable person. He's sort of reminded me of the guy from the Carrie, if you watched our Carrie review, where he just seemed like, oh yeah, I am so full of myself, and I made this movie, and I am the coolest person in the world. And he goes on talking about, I went to Harvard, and I graduated from Harvard, and I was getting offered all these big positions because I went to Harvard, and because of Harvard, and he kept going on and on and on about that, and he's like, I decided not to take all these big, high-paying positions because I wanted to be a producer of movies. And he was pretty much an annoying person, and I don't know, he may not be like that in real life, but it just kind of came off in the interview like that, where he's just like, Harvard. He talked about how he got the script to this movie, and apparently one of his friends or somebody from Harvard gave him, he was a student there, and he gave him the script. He's like, hey, I wrote this script while going through Harvard, and do you want to read it? So he read the script, and it was nothing like the finished movie. He said there was one line in the script about Santa killing somebody, and that was it. And he said, that's it, we'll make this movie. So he got the people together, and pretty much almost instantly the production went into production, and the movie was being made. I mean, it was pretty quick. Now, the writer is on here too, and the guy who wrote this movie thought he was kind of writing a comedy. He thought it was really funny, because he's sitting there like laughing, and he's like, well, the whole time I was writing the script, I was laughing out loud because this is so ridiculous that nobody's going to take it seriously. But then when they made the movie, I don't know if his black humor really came through that much, because they took it super seriously, the movie. They didn't really go for the laughs, or they didn't go for, the dark. Some of it's, I mean, obviously there's some dark humor here and there, but most of it was taken pretty serious. And I don't think the writer, even today, understands that, what they did, because he's like, oh, it's a comedy. It's funny. It's a comedy. I was like, no, it's not that funny. I mean, it's fun, but it's not laugh out loud like, Return of the Living Dead comedy. I think that's what he thought he was writing, but no, it did not turn out that way. And it was interesting to hear his thoughts on that. And it was really cool. The killer, Billy, that's on the front cover here, as you can see him, he was in this interview, and he was talking about the movie and how he got hired and everything for it. And I don't think stuff like that happens today, and I'm not going to, get into details if you want to watch the extras. But it was cool. It was really interesting to how he actually got the job playing Billy in the movie. And he looks totally different now. I mean, he does. He looks completely different than he does in the movie. But it was really refreshing listening to him because he enjoyed the heck out of making this movie. And you could tell that he loved making it. And he kept coming on. He's like, oh, what I got to put a Santa suit on. And you could just tell the vibe on the stage. And, you know, it's the excitement that the killer is now, you know, coming into the movie. And he talked about how much he loved the kills in the movie and how fun it was. And he's like, well, this might sound weird and everything, but it was fun. It was so much fun. And he was having a blast. You can tell this guy, because he probably don't get interviewed that often about this film. And he just loved the movie. And it was nice to actually hear somebody who played the killer in a film enjoy it and actually enjoy, you know, the role like this guy did. And the guy who did the music, I don't think he did the actual singing part of the film. He did, you know, the soundtrack, the instrumental stuff. It was on here as well. And of course they talked about the controversy about all the parents outside picketing the film and saying it, you know, it ruined their kids' childhood and everything else. And obviously they have to talk about that. So next extra is actually an extra with Linnea Quigley, and I was like, oh cool, they actually have an interview with her on there. And the quality of the video is terrible. It looks like it came from an old VHS tape, but it's a new interview as far as I could tell. I think it did say 2017 at the end of the interview, but it looked like it was recorded off of an old VHS camera or something. You know, it was just really, really bad quality. So she's basically sitting in a chair and they're asking her questions. And the interview is actually pretty long, and they're asking all these crazy questions like, did you believe in Santa when you were growing up? And, you know, how did you get the job for this movie? And what got you into acting? And all these questions they were asking. And it was actually really good. I liked it. At first I was like, okay, this is kind of stupid. But she kind of, like, sort of tongue-in-cheek answered some of the questions, because the questions were obviously so stupid, and she knew they were stupid. so she answered a couple of them sort of goofy, and it was good. It was a really good interview with her, actually. It was a good extra. So up next is Christmas in July, the then and now shooting locations of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I don't know if that's the actual title, but it sounds pretty good. It's basically, I don't know if they lost the contract with Sean Clark, or if he wasn't able to do it, or if he's just not doing horror's Hallowed Grounds anymore. But I guess since people like that so much, like I do, me and Vince, that was one of our favorite things that we looked forward to on every Scream Factory disc. They did a thing sort of like that, where there was no voiceover, there's zero voiceover, there's just text on the bottom of the screen telling you what you're looking at, and they basically go back out to Utah, I believe is where they filmed this, and show you the part of the film, and then they show you what the same location looks like now. So it'd be basically like Horror's Hallowed Grounds without any person there to telling you what you're looking at. And it wasn't bad, actually. It was pretty cool. It was nice to see, you know, what it looks like now. And strangely enough, pretty much looks almost exactly the same. The only thing that's not there anymore is the orphanage. They tore the orphanage down, and there was like a rock laying there. And that's the only thing that's left of the orphanage. So next up was an audio interview with the director, Charles E. Seller Jr. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Charles E. Seller Jr. And this guy had a really interesting career, to tell you the truth. He started out kind of as a writer. He wrote some popular novels, and he actually wrote The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. And, you know, of course I know who Grizzly Adams is. I've never watched a TV show in my life. But this was a radio interview with him. And this thing was long. It had to be over an hour long, because I was sitting there on the couch listening to it. And I was like, okay, well, I've been here for 40 minutes and they're still talking. So I actually got up and was wrapping presents. And I was walking around the house listening to this the whole time. And it lasted for over an hour. It had to last for, it was a long, long interview. And at first I was like, okay, here we go again, you know, just something boring. But it turned out, again, even though it was just audio, it turned out to be really interesting. This guy, like I said, had just a bizarre career, that he was filming Grizzly Adams, and then he went out and was like making nature films, filming animals and stuff. And then from that point, somehow he ended up on the set of Silent Night, Deadly Night, directing it. And even Linnea Quigley said, they asked her what she thought of the director. She said that he seemed like he was sort of out of his element, like he didn't really know what he was doing with a horror film. And he did go into a lot of detail about Silent Night, Deadly Night. And he had a story about Linnea Quigley and how, they said that she had to be in the movie, that she was a scream queen and had to get her in the film. And it's a pretty funny story that he tells about her. It's interesting. So last actual extra on here is called Santa's Stocking of Outrage. And this was where all the controversy came in. It was basically a slideshow showing you all the quotes from magazines and interviews of people and, what they thought of this film and critic reviews when it came out. And they're all terrible. They're all bashing the film and saying how horrible and awful the movie is and the worst movie ever made. And, and it's this whole thing of just a slideshow of bashing reviews over and over and over and over. It was kind of entertaining. So now we get to the audio commentary, and because of time, I did not sit through the full audio commentary because there's 2 of them on here. So I listened to about half an hour of each, and to get the gist of what they're saying and if it's any good or not. So the first commentary had actor Robert Bryan, which I believe his name's actually Robert Bryan Wilson, and he is the one who I believe played Billy. And then there was an executive producer, Scott J. Schneid. This is the Harvard guy. He was on there. And there was also a moderator that I don't know who he was that was getting them to talk. So the first half of this, again, which I knew what it was going to be, so this is why I left this for last, is that the Harvard guy went back and was repeating how he got the script and how he met, or how somebody from Harvard gave him the script and how he wrote it and how he sent it off and blah, blah. And it's sort of the same spiel, again, that he gave in the physical interview. But he did add a little bit to it. He did go into a little bit more detail about what the actual original script was about and what the movie was about and how different it was from what he was doing. And the actor, Robert Bryan Wilson, was on there as well, and he, again, same thing with the physical interview. He said how he got the job, but he went into, again, a little bit more detail, and it was kind of cool, actually. Instead of just repeating the same stuff, he repeated it and then kind of expanded on it, and how he met the director and how he, got more into the role and everything like that. It was actually not bad what they had to say about it. The one thing about this commentary is I don't think if they were watching the movie, they never really mentioned much of anything that was going on screen, except for later in the movie when Billy is older, the guy that played him, he's like, "Oh my God, look at my hair!" But he had already been on screen for half an hour before he said that. So I don't know if they were watching a delayed version of the movie, or because he was all of a sudden he's like, "Oh my God, look at my hair!" Like the first time, it was like as if it was the first time he showed up when he was watching it. So it was kind of weird that they talked about their stories and how they did it and how they did all this and everything, but they never actually talked about what was happening on the screen itself. And they probably were watching it, but just never mentioned anything that was happening on the screen. Okay, so the next commentary, and I got my notes here. So the next commentary is from Michael Hickey, Perry Botkin, Scott Harvardman, Schneid, Michael Dentz. So these people, if you're wondering who they were, is they were the scriptwriter, the second unit director, and the score, basically, that did the soundtrack to the movie. So again, there's 3 or 4 guys here talking, and this time they are actually watching the movie. So because they're commenting on stuff that's happening in the film, and it's weird because since you got so many people here, there are some long pauses. They do stop and not say anything for a couple minutes and then come back on. But you think with 4 people here, they wouldn't be pausing for this or that or whatever. And again, this isn't a bad commentary. It's nice that they're watching the film, and they do say some interesting stuff. And once the toy shop comes up, they do start talking about that. They're like, "Oh man, look, this is like I said, it was a part in time that you can see what was on the toy shelves in 1984." So the second commentary, it was entertaining. It's not bad, except for the pauses, and they don't it repeats a little bit, but it doesn't repeat it's too much. So overall, the extras on Silent Night, Deadly Night were really entertaining. I don't think that the making of it, the Sleigh Bells Ring, the story of Silent Night, Deadly Night, is up there with some of the Scream Factory's best documentaries. I mean, I don't think it matches stuff like The Fog or stuff like that. Or, you know, it's still a good comment. It's still commentary. It's still a good extra, and it's an entertaining extra, but it's not on that level of some of the other stuff they've done. But overall, with the commentaries and all the extras and everything, it was great to learn about Silent Night, Deadly Night, because I knew nothing about it. And that's why I bought this, to learn about it. And now I know so much more about it. And extra-wise, they get a 5 out of 5. So once again, Scream Factory did a great job with this. The picture quality, fantastic. The extras, super entertaining. And the uncut stuff is great too. Really cool to see the uncut stuff in the movie. And if you've never seen this, like I said, do yourself a favor. If you're a horror fan, and if this has gone under your sleigh, and you've never, whatever, for whatever reason, watched this, or haven't watched it in a long time, do yourself a favor and revisit it, because I think you will really enjoy this movie. It's really fun, and I'm glad I got it. I'm really, really glad that I took the plunge and bought it. And I'm so happy that I got to bring it to you guys on Christmas Eve, because that's pretty cool too. So we'll actually be back tomorrow with another review on Christmas Day. I know, because we have nothing else better to do than bring you reviews on Christmas Day. And I know you guys, all you maniacs out there, had nothing else better to do than watch the reviews on Christmas Day. Well, hopefully some of you will anyway. And so yeah, we actually are doing a Christmas movie review for you, and I can't wait to do that one, because that's another classic, and I can't wait to bring that to you. So thank you for watching, and have a very Merry Christmas Eve. Hopefully you guys are having a blast, because I had to work today, and it was a work day for me, and tomorrow is also a work day. So I will be at work on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. But hopefully you guys have the day off, and you can enjoy it, and have a great Christmas Eve.